Who do you think would win? Sirius Black with no wand, just escaped from Azkaban prison. So he's an animagus and that's it. Sirius Black or Wilby from the Shaggy Dog?
The Shaggy Dog in the sequel becomes the Shaggy DA.
But it's not Wilby anymore.
It is. It is Wilby still.
All right. Well, never mind.
And so he could just send Sirius back to prison.
Well, you're right. That's Sirius's only weakness. It's the law.
It's his prison.
Oh, man. Little did he know he was tangling with the master of prisons.
Wilby just
Shaggy
stomps.
DA. I do have to acknowledge Sirius, though, because Sirius has never been my favorite character in Harry Potter.
What?
Yeah, I know. No, but the dude, he is unstoppable. He is tenacious. He escaped Azkaban by starving himself until he was thin enough to fit through the bars as a dog. And then, emaciated, he swam to England. After having his soul sucked out, he pulled a freaking Robin Hood Men in Tights. It doesn't make any sense. Azkaban, they say it's in the middle of the North Sea. The North Sea is like off the coast of Denmark. You can't swim to England from the North Sea.
You're underestimating the power of the dog paddle.
I mean, the dog paddle is pretty good. But so even if we give him some slack and we say, well, maybe they meant the North Sea near Scotland, right? Like as close as possible to Scotland. There are some currents that would carry him towards Britain instead of towards Denmark, where they should have carried him. But even then, he turns up in Surrey, where Harry lives, which is on the other side of England, less than a week later, just a few days later, which means that either half-starved, half-drowned, soul-sucked Sirius landed in Scotland and then walked to London just to check on Harry, who was coming to Scotland in a few weeks anyway. Or he rode the current of the water down the coast for several days to Suffolk or Essex. And this is possible because there's a lot of river runoff. So he could have sustained himself drinking half salinated river water. and then getting out to catch a rabbit and eat. And then jumping back into the freezing ocean just to ride the current some more, just to get to Harry. Dude, Sirius, he is unstoppable. All that just to catch a glimpse of Harry and then run away.
Yeah.
But also, you've heard those stories about a dog that gets left on a road trip in one state and makes it back to the other state. And that's in America, that's huge distances, not the UK, which is slightly smaller. So
it totally fits though, because by that time he was basically more dog than man, because the way he described it in the books, the Dementors were sucking out his soul and turning him insane like everyone else there. But the only way he clung on to any amount of sapience was by turning into a dog, and they couldn't quite sense him as well as a dog, so they wouldn't suck his soul as much. So he was probably more dog than human. He's I gotta go home.
Gotta go find my master. I don't know about this, but could he use possibly wandless magic? Because the trace is only on children, right? So technically, once he's out of Azkaban, if he could use wandless magic, if he knew how, he would have been able to.
He doesn't seem to know how. Anytime he's without a wand, he doesn't seem to be able to do much.
No, well, and even with a wand, he mostly just dies. No, I mean, Peter Pettigrew, by all rights, was incredibly correct to be terrified of Sirius Black. He's just this unstoppable, angry Terminator dog. This horrific dark wizard just hunting him down. Sirius is nuts. Just to recap for our listeners, what we're doing is a Harry Potter extravaganza. Over the course of the next few months, we're going to be covering every Harry Potter movie, specifically looking for evidence for a few theories, including but not limited to the theory that Ron is an evil wizard who cast Imperius on Hermione to make her fall in love with him. Also, Hagrid is an evil wizard who is a Death Eater and working with Voldemort. Or Dumbledore is an evil wizard who just wanted power and was trying to use the students to basically amass an army. Or Snape was a good wizard and was Harry's father. Those are the theories we're covering.
All great theories.
And to introduce ourselves, I'm Leif Eric. I'm here with my brother Torvald and special guest, my sister Brita.
But Brita, I wanted to ask, could you explain just, quickly for our listeners, what is the trace when you mention that? Because that might actually be important for some of our theories.
Yeah, and that is, it comes up pretty quickly in this here movie. But the trace is some sort of magic spell, I assume, that the Ministry casts on all underage witches and wizards.
Sounds like a breach of privacy to me, but...
And interestingly, the trace only matters if you're like Muggle-born, because they don't care if you use magic in a house
spells, it's fine.
that has adult wizards, because they'll assume that like, oh, well, an adult wizard was supervising them or something.
Well, they don't care. They don't care about filthy little mudbloods.
No, but yeah, so it's only for students like Harry, where he's known to be in a house with no wizard adults to supervise him. If he uses magic, that's against the law, and the trace will notify the Ministry.
Okay. Basically legalized racism and segregation. Anyway.
Should we start off talking about this movie, where the movie starts, which goes along really well with our trace discussion, which is Harry practicing the spell
Lumos Maxima,
which is not a spell.
Maxima is a qualifier.
That is never ever used ever again. If you could just add Maxima to the end of a spell to make it more powerful, why isn't every Avada Kedavra and Avada Kedavra Maxima?
I will say this is supported by the games. In the Harry Potter video game, the mobile game, one of your close friends, Ben, and another friend of yours named Badia, who is known to have invented a spell before, collaborate to invent the spell Flipendo Maxima, which is just a more powerful version of Flipendo.
That's the game's favorite spell.
Flipendo was already a really powerful spell. That's all insane.
It's all
That's
you need in the
games. The best dueling spell. Like, what is Harry doing just screwing around with Rictus Sempra? He uses Rictus Sempra.
Tickling people.
Rictus Sempra is not a very good spell in the games.
Yeah, this whole scene's stupid. He's casting a fake spell, and he can't cast magic outside of school. Vernon says so, like, literally 10 seconds later.
In the next scene, yeah.
Yeah. Like, it's just the dumbest scene that it's weird. Just inserted here. Just like, hey, let's start.
It's for the title sequence.
It is, and it feels like an animatronic attraction on a Harry Potter ride, right? Like, feels like you would be in the cart, and you would slowly go past this animatronic Harry Potter who's casting Lumos Maxima over and over. Then animatronic Vernon comes in and says, "What's that? What's going on?" And then leaves. And then Harry Potter casts Lumos Maxima again. Wow. Right?
Whoa. Quick trigger warning that I need to put at the beginning. Just so you know, we are going to talk about perhaps some of your beloved characters, and we might say that they're evil. We might even, especially in this one, be talking about what could be your favorite movie. And we love all the Harry Potter movies, but we might not like this particular movie. We might have a lot of criticisms.
Hey, so, Leif, what's the worst Harry Potter movie?
Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban.
Oh no! Brito, what's the worst Harry Potter movie? You gotta save us.
Fantastic
Harry Potter
Beasts
and the Cursed Child.
Oh, okay, you're right. I wasn't including Fantastic Beasts.
Yeah.
Fantastic Beasts is nothing compared to how abysmal The Crimes of Grindelwald was.
Just that whole series.
I'm gonna criticize this movie a bit. I don't like the first half of this movie, but I actually think the second half of this movie is genius, and we're going to get to that. And I've seen the second half way more than I've seen the first half.
Okay.
What's interesting here is this is the first time they changed the director, and I think this was sort of like the people who knew they were going to be with the series throughout, so like the producer and a lot of the production designers, they decided to take their moment to be like, okay, we're going to make a uniform look for the rest of the films, and that's what the third movie does, is it changes everything, but then it stays consistently, more or less, that way through the rest of the series.
But that was a good decision to make if they knew they were going to be juggling directors from now on.
That said, the third one is still a very different tone than any of the ones that come afterward. I mean, there's lots of weird things they do with it. Like, they all wear normal clothes now instead of their school uniforms. And it's also just like the way it's shot is all moody and angsty and emo. And the wizarding world it gets so grungy and gross. It's like... Everywhere is Nocturne Alley now, and they all dress like they're part of like a grungy 70s British punk band.
Maybe this is reflecting like Harry growing up, right? He used to see the positive side of things, but now he's matured a bit and he sees things
He's
how
only
they really
13.
He's grown up. What other completely unique and original works has Alfonso Cuarón come up with? Just refresh my memory.
Well, okay. He made Gravity.
Wait, the one with Sandra Bullock?
Yeah.
Oh.
He didn't make Gravity.
He claims
may have
that
stolen
gravity just came to him. That it just came to him. He wrote it in like 2 days, and it was wonderful.
Yeah, and he happened to write it for the studio that already had the script for Gravity from a different writer.
Yeah, there's another writer who writes on the show Rizzoli and Isles, was optioned by a studio that was later bought by a bigger studio, but there was a clause in her contract that if that studio got bought by a bigger studio, they still have to fulfill the agreement, the contract.
Oh, okay, so that's good. So I'm sure they honored that clause.
They made her movie
everything was fine.
Gravity, and I'm certain they made this decision consciously. I don't know why we're talking about this, but they made this decision consciously. They only credited Alfonso Cuarón as writer and director, and that's because Alfonso Cuarón, for the most part, is seen as an auteur who writes and directs all his movies. Anyway, if you ask Alfonso Cuarón, he's like, yeah, it just came to me. And I think in the mind of a very self-centered director, things like this do just come to him.
He's like, I read the script and then it came to me. Like,
and then it's mine. Anyway, they never settled with her. She took them to court several times, but because
she got nothing.
She was going up against bigwigs, they just buy the
they
courts.
have
Like,
more
it didn't
money
even
than
go
her,
to court.
So they could drag it out, right?
The judges, every single time she went to court, just threw it out.
Judges are so stupid. I hate
it's
judges.
so stupid. It's just because, and she was like, I don't have enough money to keep doing this, so I just stopped. Alfonso Cuarón, great guy.
He was the director for this movie. There you go. Yeah, gotta give him credit where credit's due. The very first scene of the movie, I just have to acknowledge, it would be an atrocity not to acknowledge the presence of one of the greatest actors of all time in this film.
Trunchbull?
Aunt Marge, played by none other than Pam Ferris, Agatha Trunchbull from Matilda, only the greatest and scariest superhero villain ever.
Yeah, she's fantastic.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe she never got an Oscar for Matilda. She is amazing.
And she is in one of the worst scenes in this movie where she just blows up like a balloon and floats away.
But before doing that, she does deliver a great performance. I enjoy her quite a bit.
She's so nice to Dudley and so mean to Harry.
Yeah.
When Harry inflates Aunt Marge, what spell did he use to accomplish this?
I mean, it's just supposed to be like when he disappeared the glass on the python cage.
Dude, magical kids are dangerous.
No, like they straight up play it in what is it, the sixth one where we see that, or fifth, when we see Dumbledore go to see young Voldemort, young Tom Riddle. They play him up like Damien from The Omen, like he's an evil kid who just lights the thing. Oh wait, no, actually Dumbledore lights it on fire.
But they do say that other people in the orphanage are like scared of him, that he's like a strange kid and weird things happen.
Why are the Dementors at Privet Drive? Are they looking for Sirius there? Because Harry's there? I mean, I guess that kind of makes sense.
Sirius is there.
I wouldn't expect him to be there.
They've been going after him since he was swimming in the North Sea. They followed him all this way.
Okay, dude. So he not only made the trek across the ocean to Privet Drive with no food, no water, and no soul, but also with Dementors hot on his trail the entire time.
A soul.
Yes.
I mean, they've been sucking his soul for like a decade now. Like
but he's
still in
has
bad
one.
Condition.
If we see it float out of his mouth,
oh, it's true.
Fine.
He's got that little soul bean.
Sirius was crazy. Like, they've admitted that. He's like an insane person. His only goal is to kill Peter Pettigrew. And yet he somehow managed to not only be like, actually, I do want to check on my dead friend's son, but like to find out where he was and then go track him down while running from Dementors. It just seems crazy.
I know.
Yeah, he should have gone to the burrow.
He may not have known that that's exactly where Peter Pettigrew was. He had only seen the picture of them in Egypt. That's how he knew he was related to the Weasleys. And I don't think they included their home address in that news article that he read.
But Sirius was a part of the Order of the Phoenix, and the Order of the Phoenix was like 90% Weasley.
It's true. He would have known where the Weasleys
them.
lived. You know what? I retract my statement. He should have just gone straight to the burrow. What's wrong with him?
So this is the part where Harry falls down and accidentally summons the night bus. Also the part of the movie where the movie just like wanders into like a Tim Burton movie. And I think that what's happening here is Alfonso Cuarón, who normally does grounded dramas, had never done a fantasy film before. And he was like, well, it's crazy, right? It's like Tim Burton-y. And so he was like, let's have a stretchy, squishy cartoon bus with like a Jamaican shrunken talking head.
I don't know why he introduced Jamaican shrunken heads. And I was going to ask you about them. Are they in Fury? Like, are they zombies?
No, they're just racist.
Well, yes, they are that too. But like, did some wizard kill a person to make this shrunken head just for the sole purpose of having a hood ornament? Because that's disgusting.
I don't know. I just want to say that I think that if anyone had seen this Harry Potter movie first, the third one, I think it's just too much. Like one zany event after another. First, he blows up his aunt. Then he gets on the crazy, wacky bus ride. And then he meets a weird hunchback who tries to offer him food.
Yeah.
While the minister is just like, cool, do wear magic wherever you want. It's fine. And then he gets attacked by a weird monster book.
You're getting way ahead of us.
Yeah.
I just say,
talk about
like,
all
there's
these
one
scenes.
sequence after another. There's no grounding here. Like, it's luckily we already knew these characters and liked them. When Harry gets to the Leaky Cauldron, why is the Leaky Cauldron now like some sort of weird opium den from the 1800s?
I know, it really changed since last time, right? It used to be a cozy place with a nice fire where Hagrid could tell Harry stories about Voldemort.
Did child Harry just imagine it a lot nicer than it was?
Maybe it's just gone downhill. People found out that Voldemort was there as Quirrell and stopped coming, and then it turned into an opium den.
So, Leif, you already introduced this scene, the Leaky Cauldron. I just have a bunch of clarifying questions for you. Who is this hunchback? Why was he waiting for Harry? How did Hedwig get here? Why is the Minister of Magic here? Why did he cover up for Harry? And why is he so happy about it? Like, what in the heck is going on here? And why did he buy Harry's school books for him? That doesn't make any sense.
There are answers to some of those questions.
In the book, there are answers. In the movie, there aren't.
No,
Yeah,
in the
that's
movie,
true.
it's just like, guess this is how the world works for Harry Potter.
The Hedwig, they answer that. She got there because she's a very smart bird.
Oh, all right. I accept it.
We
That's
know
a good
that.
answer.
Yeah. And then, the Cornelius Fudge thing. He's there to win over Harry's favor so that Harry will support him and he'll get more political clout from it. That's why he's doing all of this.
He's buddying up to Harry, but
Yes.
Harry can't do favors for him. Like, Harry has no intrinsic power.
He's going to graduate and get a job someday.
It would make a little more sense if Rita Skeeter was there doing like a story on it.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. If there was someone to
Well, she
publicize
probably
this.
was. She was just hiding as a bug.
Oh, yeah.
Wow, you're right. She was. I can accept that too. It all makes sense now. But I think we can all agree that the Monster Book of Monsters is a really stupid book.
Yeah.
It tries to kill you and then rips itself apart. It tries to kill itself.
No, it's not a stupid book. It's an evil book chosen by an evil wizard.
Yes, it is.
It looks just like the Necronomicon from Evil Dead.
It does. At the Leaky Cauldron, what are Ron and Hermione doing there?
Well, the entire Weasley family is there. I have no idea why Hermione is there.
She's just there to argue with and insult Ron because she hates
In
that
the
guy.
movies, like, it appears that at the beginning of every school year, before they get Harry, Hermione will go and just live with the Weasleys
she just
for a
goes to
little
live
while.
at the Weasley's house.
Why? Why not Harry
I don't
first?
know, but yeah,
I
after
know.
the
Harry and
second
Ron
year,
are
she's
far better friends than Hermione.
Well, and
Ron.
Harry's in a far worse situation. Get him out of the Dursleys' house
and
first,
I think
right?
Dumbledore specifically says he doesn't need to be at the Dursleys' house for more than like a couple weeks. He just has to go back enough that it technically
It's
is his home
torture.
in order to keep that love spell in place.
Just enough to make you uncomfortable, Harry.
Well, Ron and Hermione are arguing. She's calling his rat a smelly old shoe brush and telling Crookshanks he's a mean little boy. But then when she sees Harry, angry, disgusted Hermione just absolutely beams. And she's so happy to see Harry.
Yeah, no, that's true. And there is also a popular theory that if Ron had just let Hermione have her cat eat Scabbers, then Voldemort would not have been reborn and everything would have been okay. And it also would have saved Ron's brother who dies.
It would have saved a lot of people who died. And
Yeah.
Lupin and Dobby, all of them.
It's all Ron's fault.
It is. So you're saying that Ron brought about the resurrection of the Dark Lord Voldemort. Is that
Yes.
Is that true? Wow.
The only reason it happened is because of Peter Pettigrew. Like, he is the most important person.
You're right.
in
And Ron
Voldemort's
cared
plan.
for Peter
And
Pettigrew
Ron
for a
protected
decade.
him for years. Yeah.
Mhm.
Actually, before he was Ron's pet, he was passed down through the family.
Right.
So,
The whole Weasley family protected him.
Especially if your theory is true that Ron knew Peter Pettigrew was some evil person and was learning Imperius spells from him.
Right. Well, I mean, the Weasleys seem to attract this sort of thing, right? The same thing happened to Ginny with that diary.
Wow, you're right. That's true.
They are a pure-blood magical family. I mean, it isn't crazy to think that they would attract and be around a lot of magics and things that are unusual. Anyway, I wanted to say one thing about the Weasleys in the Leaky Cauldron, and that's that of all the adults in this series and in this movie, only Arthur bothers to warn Harry in any detail about Sirius Black.
He's the only person who actually tries to help Harry. I will give you that. Mr. Weasley, he basically comes over to Harry. He's like, I shouldn't be telling you this. I'm gonna tell you this. Sirius has escaped, and in his mind, you're the only thing in Voldemort's way of returning to power. He's going to find and kill you, so don't go looking for him. And then Harry turns to him just bewildered and says, but Mr. Weasley, why would I go looking for somebody who wants to kill me? Which is a really good question. And then the scene ends. I can't imagine what Mr. Weasley said to explain this.
Harry. You just do these things, Harry. I gotta go.
Yeah, I will say that was his one mistake. I honestly think that Arthur should have explained a little bit more.
He might as well have told Harry that Sirius killed his parents. I don't understand why everyone hid this from Harry.
No, Harry's reaction as soon as he finds
out.
He goes,
I'm gonna kill him.
Somehow they predicted that. The thing none of us could have predicted.
I think it would have been better if they had told him in a controlled circumstance where they could talk him down rather than where he's just with Hermione and Ron.
Well, I do love how it's consistent that Scabbers, aka Peter Pettigrew, really just wants to get away. Crookshanks had to catch him. He tried to get away in Egypt. Mr. Weasley has to run alongside the train to give him back to Ron.
It's not. It's Molly. As they're leaving, Molly Weasley comes running up to Ron and hands him Scabbers very insistently and begs, don't lose him. For whatever reason, Molly seems to be showing more care and concern for this rat than she shows for most of her children.
Yeah.
Except Harry.
Sure.
Maybe more people other than Ron know who this rat is. Maybe the Weasleys are a dark family, as we've
Maybe
already
that's why Sirius didn't go to the Weasleys.
Yeah, he's scared of the Weasleys.
I don't buy that.
So they end up on the train. Hermione is freaking Sherlock Holmes. She is incredibly quick to see this man sleeping there, identify his name on the suitcase, and explain it to everyone as if of course, this is Professor R.J. Lupin. Come on, guys.
When I read the books, I always kind of liked Lupin. He's a fun, nice character. In the movies, I always have this instant dislike of Lupin, and it's because he's got this disgusting greasy hair,
mustache.
This weird stalker mustache.
Yep.
He's sleeping under a coat like a weird, creepy guy. He's got a bottle of vodka next to him. I mean,
it's not vodka. That's his anti-werewolf potion.
Right, but it looks like vodka. Everything about him looks like a guy you should not trust.
There is something that happens in the Harry Potter mobile game that honestly made him irredeemable to me. Which I can explain. So some spoiler alerts for the game. There's a character named Chiara Labosca. She is a werewolf. You find out that Chiara has met Lupin. Now, she is a third or fourth year student at this time, and he's an adult man. I don't know how they met. He's just hanging out near Hogwarts, and he tells the student that the ingredients needed to make this Wolfsbane potion are so expensive right now. There's a really bad shortage. People can't get it. And so Chiara tells him she has extra of this Wolfsbane potion, and she will give it to him. And she does, and he takes it asking no questions when in fact she gave him her own potion.
Oh no.
And so after you have to take it for several days. So it's 4 or 5 days. And then on the 5th day, when she goes to give him the potion, you as the main character find out and you tell Chiara and oh, what have you done? And Lupin is like, Chiara, you shouldn't have done that. And she's like, oh, you're right. I'm sorry. But at this point, I've already not taken 4 of the doses. So you might as well take the 5th dose. So she gives it to him. And then he just leaves and you get to deal with the fact that she's a werewolf.
He's out of there. All right. I was going to say, this sounds like more her mistake than his, but he probably shouldn't have just, left.
Yeah, like he should not have, but also like even up to that point, like he is an adult man who's just hanging out with a young girl who in fact is the exact same age as the girl he ends up marrying while she's in school. And he just took her word for it. He just took her word for it that like, oh yeah, I have extra wolfsbane potion, even though he knew there was a severe shortage. And this potion was probably being provided to Chiara by Snape. And if I was Snape, I'd be pissed.
I didn't know this was going to be a throwing Lupin under the bus episode. I had no idea.
I actually do like Lupin, but yeah, I was really mad
I used to.
So they're on the train.
Dementors break in, just decide to murder kids. They're like, hey, 5 o'clock, kid murdering time.
Hermione says, after the lights go out, ouch, Ron, that was my foot. When she is sitting far away from him on the bench, like there's at least enough room for another person to sit between them. And Ron is leaning away from her, looking out the window. I don't see how he could have done anything to her foot.
She just assumes if anyone ever hurts her, it was probably Ron.
It's like, who's the biggest jerk in here? Oh, yeah.
The Dementor appearing outside the door is a really cool scene. I love how, the train stops, the lights flicker, it gets cold and dark, everything starts freezing over. You see its silhouette in the window. It's a really cool scene. But
I mostly just love making fun of stupid Harry for fainting at the sight of one little Dementor.
One little Dementor faints, he screams.
Maybe that's just because I'm a terrible Slytherin.
Yeah.
So they get to the school, and for some reason, there's the Toad Choir is singing, and also Professor Flitwick is a different person.
Yeah, Flitwick.
He's gotten some big changes.
Well, he gets and keeps apparently Alfonso Cuarón's favorite style, which is greasy hair and mustache.
Yeah. Everyone gets a greasy hair and mustache. Everyone.
The other important thing about this scene is that Dumbledore is also a different person now.
He's Gambon! Yeah! And
he's played by Peter
Gambon. Richard Harris.
Everyone's favorite Dumbledore.
He was such a good Dumbledore. Now, the new Dumbledore, instead of being just like a gentle, wizened old man, is just like a befuddled,
I love Gambon as Dumbledore. I love
He's like, what? What's going on? Harry?
He is so...
Why'd you put your name in the goblet of fire?
He's so agitated all the time.
This may just be a myth or a rumor, but I've heard that Gambon specifically chose not to read any of the books because he was like, I don't want them to taint my portrayal of
Probably
Dumbledore.
because he's just a lazy, grumpy old man.
Yeah, I'm just going to play him the way I feel is right. Yeah, I think it's the same thing. But that is some of the explanation for why he's just so different. After the Frog Choir and stuff, he does his announcements, including one important announcement that Rubius Hagrid is now the teacher of Care of Magical Creatures, following the retirement of Professor Kettleburn and also the fact that he's been exonerated for being the heir of Slytherin. So I guess now he can have a job, even though he didn't graduate school, but whatever.
Right. Well, okay. So I want to dig into this a bit. It is insane. Hagrid is just rising in the ranks. He's just skyrocketing. He is a dropout half giant with a broken wand who is the groundskeeper. And now he's the professor of Care of Magical Creatures with no skills or credentials, all thanks to just cozying up to Dumbledore a lot. He certainly knows how to be friends with the best people.
Right.
Yes.
Whether it was in the book or the movie, I always hated the hippogriff arc in this. It's just such a generic, boo-hoo, oh, this beautiful creature's going to get killed because that annoying little boy from Dumbo was bothering it. It's the thing from Dumbo where Dumbo's mom gets, punished because of some dumb little kid. Right. I don't know. It's just a generic plot, and I don't care about Buckbeak.
Aw, you're so cruel.
I'm a Slytherin.
Hagrid tells these children to go over to Buckbeak, despite Buckbeak being extremely dangerous. And he never tells them how to deal with Buckbeak if Buckbeak rejects them.
Just stroke his spine.
He's like, wow. No, but he's like, yeah, now make sure you bow to him because he might reject you. He doesn't say what to do in that case. He's just like, all right, get close to this.
It's just like when they taught him how to duel and they were like, we should teach them how to block spells.
No,
but let's not.
When he thinks that Buckbeak has rejected Harry, he's like, oh, back off. It's really dangerous. Yes. And then he's like, oh, wait, he accepted you. Cool. And just shoves Harry on his back. And before he's ready, is like, here you go. And they go on a long flight. And in the movie, at least, Harry seems to enjoy it and is kind of like, oh, this is great. In the books, I'm pretty sure they specifically say he hates it. He prefers flying on a broom.
He'd rather be on a broom, yeah.
What you're saying is they should have beheaded Hagrid.
Yes.
Malfoy's dicking around. He's being kind of, reckless and stupid, but he's a kid. Like, he's just, a 13-year-old kid? You can't expect them to be on their best behavior at all times. And how is he being reckless? By doing what the teacher told him to. All he does is approach the bird. That's it.
But he didn't do it respectfully, Torvald.
So he's a 13-year-old. How many 13-year-olds know how to be respectful on command?
Hagrid's response to Malfoy getting injured is he's just like, oh, you're okay, or whatever. And then Hermione has to jump in.
Don't get me fired.
And she's like, Hagrid, he's got to be taken to the hospital wing.
Right.
It seems like a very weird thing that Hermione's the one to take control of this situation.
Hagrid is used to covering stuff up.
Yeah.
Exactly, yes. Just replace the hippogriff, which is a mystical being that we don't understand, with a lion that we do understand, right? And he's just like, hey, kids, look at this lion. Get close to it. Come on, get close to the lion. And then one kid manages it. So the other kids are like, oh, cool, it must be safe. And then the lion bites the kid, breaks his arm.
Even
totally
replace it with a hawk.
Or replace it with a chemistry lesson that kids might actually have, right? Where you have a lesson where the chemicals are kind of dangerous and he wasn't taking care of it properly. And one of the kids gets hurt and he's just like, no, you're fine.
You're okay. Don't wash out your eyes to get the acid out. You're okay.
Hagrid, he has to be taken to the eye shower.
Wow.
This scene, I believe, is where we start seeing, and in many of the classes, how this movie screws up the time travel, because Hermione isn't there and then suddenly she'll show up and be there. And they're like, what? How'd you get here, Hermione? She's like, I was always here. When an important plot point of this movie is that the time travel works that she was always there. That's an important plot point because Harry sees himself across the lake. He was always there. That's how time travel works. It doesn't change things.
Yeah, and also the fact that the way time travel works is not that she just shows up out of nowhere. She would have time traveled back and walked to class with them.
So I always saw it as she time traveled back, but not quite far enough and had to sneak into class a little late.
She did do that because she had too many classes. So she was really busy, but it wasn't like she was just appearing out of thin air.
All right, so Trelawney's class. It's just another instance where Hermione teleported.
Yeah.
She definitely wasn't there, and then she is there.
She's just suddenly there. Yeah.
I do have one thing to say about Trelawney, which is that in the book and movie, Dumbledore acts like she's kind of useless, and he only keeps her around because she occasionally has she goes into a weird trance and speaks in a weird voice and has real prophecies. But I want to point out that in the book and movie, every stupid little frivolous prophecy she says also happens.
All of them come true. Yes, she's incredibly
very good.
That is a known fan theory about Trelawney, that all of her prophecies do come true. The reason I've heard that Dumbledore thinks she's useless is because she's descended from the Oracle Cassandra, who was at Troy during the fall of the Trojan War, and she was cursed that no one would believe her prophecies.
Did they say in the books that she's descended from Cassandra?
J.K. Rowling confirmed that she's the great-great-granddaughter of Cassandra Trelawney, who was a seer. I don't know if that's the one at Troy.
Frida's an oracle for J.K. Rowling. So the next note that I have is an evil Dumbledore theory point. After they find out that Sirius Black is in the castle because he attacks the fat lady, the very first thing that Dumbledore does after learning that Sirius Black is in the castle is to lock them all in the castle.
Yeah.
The very next shot is the Great Hall closing and 1,000 locks locking into place. There's an evil wizard in the castle. Lock them all in.
But what do you think is his plan here?
No plan.
Well, no, as far as I can tell, the only people in that hall are actually all the Gryffindors. And they're sleeping there because the professors are searching the Gryffindor common room and stuff and making sure it's safe before sending them back.
Okay, well, that's a good explanation, Brita.
So it's not just a castle-wide sleepover as far as I can tell.
I always thought it was a castle-wide sleepover. Maybe
that'd be pretty cool.
Pay close enough attention. We now know that there is a deranged magical murderer loose in this school full of children. Dumbledore turns to Filch, the elderly squib, and says, "Secure the castle, Filch." Poor Filch. What's he supposed to do? What is he supposed to do?
To lock the doors with real locks.
Real locks. Alohomora.
Alohomora.
I just love it. Every time something bad happens, Dumbledore's response: "Secure the castle, Filch. You magicless old man." Every time. It never fails. Each movie they do it. It just makes me so happy. And dude, Filch, that freaking badass, he never even wavers. He's just like, all right, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna protect these kids. You're like, Filch, what are you gonna do?
And also torture them sometimes.
He's a stern but fair person. Kind of.
Snape teaches the Defense Against the Dark Arts class while
Yeah.
Lupin is sick. He assumes that having a werewolf teacher is potentially dangerous, and he is, of course, absolutely correct in that assumption. But he doesn't want to go against the wishes of Dumbledore. He's as much a slave to Dumbledore as everyone else here.
Perhaps more so.
Right. Yes, much more so. So all he can do is prepare the students for possible dangers that might await them because of their teacher. And when he has the chance to teach them about werewolves, he does, which I think is a good choice.
Not just the students, his son. Like, he thinks Harry's in danger. He thinks that Sirius and Wolf Lupin are gonna come for him, and he's kind of right.
And his entrance into this class is amazing. So he just walks in, he closes all the windows, he pulls down the screen, turns around and says, "Turn to page 394.
Yep.
He asks them to write 2 rolls of parchment about werewolves, with extra emphasis on recognizing werewolves.
Yes.
Like, he's specifically trying to get Harry to realize who his enemies at that castle are.
And before he gives that assignment, first of all, he does tell Draco off for howling stupidly in the middle of his class. And then he calls Hermione an insufferable know-it-all because she did interrupt him.
Yes.
Now, he did ask if anyone knows the difference between an animagus and a werewolf, but it was clearly a rhetorical question because he didn't stop
Yes.
to call on people whose hands were raised.
Although he does say, like, no one, what a pity, or something. So, like, he was
Yeah.
specifically
He was just trying to
ignoring
be
Hermione.
funny. He was like, no one knows. All right, do this assignment.
Well, and right after he calls her an insufferable know-it-all, Ron's like, hey, yeah, he's got a point, you know? Like, Ron's like, that I can agree with. Like, Ron, you're such a jerk to your friends.
She's not his friend.
What I love about when he gives the assignment, he says, as an antidote to your ignorance, hand on my desk by Monday 2 rolls of parchment. And I love that he uses the word antidote because he's the potions teacher. It's in character.
That was very good.
Then, when Harry suggests to Snape that he shouldn't have to do homework because he's on the Quidditch team and there's a game tomorrow, Snape, rather than point out how self-centered Harry is being, just proceeds to warn Harry to take care because he doesn't want him to lose any limbs.
Yeah.
He's not going to lose any limbs playing Quidditch.
You could. He did last time.
Yeah, that's true.
That's true.
Kind of, but that was really mostly
Snape was
Gilderoy
paying
Lockhart's
attention.
fault.
It's a callback.
Yeah, it was. Good job, Snape. Page 394.
No, it's a very good scene. And I think, yeah, he's just trying to help out the students. Like, they are in a dangerous situation that they honestly should have been made aware of, and they weren't. And so he's trying to help them figure it out. A lot of people in the Harry Potter fandom don't see this scene the same way, but I do.
Speaking of kids being in a dangerous situation, we cut to a Quidditch match.
From an awesome sketch that Draco took the time to draw. Harry Potter
Yes.
getting struck by
It was a
lightning.
really good little sketch.
It's pretty
Draco.
cool.
In this Quidditch match, 2 kids get struck by lightning, and one gets swarmed
Yes.
by Dementors and plummets to his death, basically.
All of them plummet from very high heights.
Yeah.
Like, this is the most brutal game ever. Why are these kids playing this?
This is why the wizarding community has stayed so small over the years, because they don't give a crap about their kids. So many of their kids must die while growing up playing Quidditch and all the other dangerous magical things.
Splinching themselves while trying to get rid of their bathroom leavings.
Wow. Yeah. While Harry's in the hospital, all his friends are crowded around him and looking at him while he wakes up. One of his friends is like sitting snuggled up against him right in his face and never breaks eye contact with him.
Oh, I wonder which one.
The same friend whose hand he lovingly caressed many times in the last movie.
Yes.
I just want to talk about the scene briefly where Lupin and Harry are talking about Dementors, and Harry asks Lupin to teach him how to make a Patronus. And Lupin says, like, oh, well, it's a really difficult charm. It's not usually taught to people your age, but we can try. It doesn't make any sense that Lupin isn't teaching this to all the students. Like, he absolutely should be. There are Dementors
really
on the
should.
school
There's
ground.
Dementors
They can't be
everywhere.
controlled. They're attacking students. And we know that Harry teaches it to all students from all years when he's
He
a
does.
fifth-year student in Dumbledore's army. And, like, some
Yeah.
of them don't manage it, but they all try. And, like, several of them can at least make a shield.
His description of the Patronus charm is not really how it works usually.
No,
Like,
I also noticed that.
he says that it shields the user while the Dementors feed on the
feed
Patronus.
on it. Yeah.
No, it chases away Dementors as like a animal.
I mean, unless he was specifically talking about the shield version that Harry learns to make first, that could be. We do see them like fly down and hit it and kind of fly away, so that could be them thinking they're feeding on it.
But they still seem repelled by it, not like, oh, yummy, yummy Patronus, nom, 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 you know?
It's not like the Dementors, once they feed, they're like, oh, we're full, we'll just leave. Like, otherwise there'd be no way to get rid of
ravenous.
Dementors.
They eat everything. So they're about to go into Hogsmeade, and the twins take Harry Potter aside to give him the Marauder's map. This is the most useful thing anybody ever gives Harry Potter.
Yeah.
It's more useful than anything else, even the invisibility cloak.
Yeah.
The twins really care about Harry Potter, and they basically looked at him and they're like, none of the other adults are doing anything to protect him from Dementors and murderers. So let's give him the one thing we have that can protect him. Anyway, they're way better friends than Ron. That's all I can say. Ron doesn't do anything for Harry ever.
People like to say that Ron stayed home with Harry his first Christmas so he wouldn't be alone. It's not true. His family went to visit, I think, Charlie that year and didn't take him.
Yeah, they didn't want him.
You just stay at school, Ron.
I'm only surprised that they didn't take Harry.
They didn't even know Harry yet. Their only interaction had been, oh, you don't know how to get onto the platform.
I'm still surprised they didn't take him. Well, it's like, who else could I bring who's not Ron?
That little boy who I met at King's Cross. The Marauder's map is crazy. Like, I don't know why it exists or how it exists.
I have no idea how they made it.
How does it track and identify every person in the castle? And could it do this outside of the castle?
I don't think it can.
Could anything be made to do this outside the castle? Because the technology exists.
I would bet anything that the person who invented this map was Wormtail, because he was the nerd of the group, right? The rest of them were all these like big bullies.
Lupin was also a nerd.
How did these idiots put this together? It really must have been mostly Wormtail and to some extent Lupin.
And that's why no one else has the technology or even knows about it, because like Wormtail's been a dead rat.
I mean, it's a preposterously powerful artifact. Like, it doesn't make any sense that it was made by children.
All I can think of is there an individual spell to track a single person? Because if so, then he must have cast that spell on every person in the castle. But that doesn't make sense because it tracks people who enter the castle who have never been there before.
Yeah.
So it must be a spell on the castle. So they enchanted Hogwarts, like the most magical place on Earth, apparently. Like this is just insane. How did they enchant the castle and get away with it?
A lot of people get away with a lot of things at Hogwarts.
They also got away with apparently turning themselves into animaguses, which includes holding a leaf under your tongue for a month.
On the wizardingworld.com, they describe the creation of the Marauder's map to some extent. They say, the magic used in the map's creation is advanced and impressive. They got that right.
Yep.
It included the homunculus charm, enabling the possessor of the map to track the movements of every person in the castle. Then they say, it was also enchanted to forever repel, as insultingly as possible, the curiosity of their nemesis, Severus Snape.
Specifically Snape.
I always thought that was maybe just a spell for any teacher. No, it's for Snape. And it's been like that since he was a student.
They need to make a TV show that's like Phineas and Ferb, but Candace is Snape and he's always trying to bust them.
Well, yes.
The Marauders.
If J.K. Rowling ever wanted to cash in on the Harry Potter franchise again, then she should just write a prequel series about James, Lily, Snape, Sirius, Lupin, and Peter and their adventures at Hogwarts.
People have absolutely been begging for that.
Fans would eat it up, dude.
Yep.
I'd read it, and I don't even like those characters.
Yeah.
I think he's a little too old now, but I would have loved a young Snape played by Adam Driver.
That would have been so cool.
Yeah, I mean,
Perfect.
he's definitely an adult now.
Okay, so did you guys know that when Harry puts on the invisibility cloak, he becomes like a superhuman?
Yes.
Like, I know he's a wizard, right? But when he has that cloak on, he can fight 3 people at once across the field from each other, just fling people around, carry them around. Like,
without leaving footprints in the snow-covered ground.
No, he's literally just Supermaning around that field, like picking people up and whipping them around.
I think the Shrieking Shack actually is haunted. There was a ghost.
A real ghost.
Harry just happened to be behind them after that fight. He didn't even see
I
it.
just thought it was funny.
Harry, we know it's you. And he's just like, we'll just go with that.
He probably thought it was Hermione doing it. He's like, oh, she's such a powerful witch. Ron also says that the Shrieking Shack is supposedly the most haunted house in London, which has to be not true, considering it's not haunted at all.
Haunted.
And Hogwarts
is more
itself
haunted.
is way more haunted.
More ghosts. Yeah.
They hang out with ghosts all the time. Why would they even be scared of the Shrieking Shack?
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. And the reason that the Shrieking Shack was supposedly haunted and named the Shrieking Shack was because of like Lupin's howling, right? People thought that was shrieking, I guess.
It's obviously a wolf, right?
But also like you can go and see like, well, is there a ghost in there that's shrieking? And there's not, because it was just Lupin one night a month.
As they're sitting there discussing the Shrieking Shack, Hermione says, do you want to move a bit closer? And he says, huh? She says, to the Shrieking Shack. And then he's like, no, I'm fine right here. I don't want to go anywhere with you.
Yep, that all checks out.
Just after that scene with the Shrieking Shack, Hermione says, oh, look who it is, Madame Rosmerta. Ron fancies her.
Yes. Oh, Ron fancies Madame Rosmerta. I wonder why. She is a loud, angry woman who yells at people, who wears frumpy dresses and has sort of thick, curly hair. She's Ron's mother.
Oh, no.
I thought you were going to say she's
Molly
Hermione.
Weasley. One might argue that Hermione herself is somewhat like this. She is also a person who's always ordering Ron around, acting like his mother, and has curly hair. He seems to have sort of a screwed up relationship with his mother. Who else does? Oh, I don't know. Norman Bates, the original Psycho.
Dude. And as we all know, the original Psycho is steeped in actual science and psychology.
Oh, gosh. Anyway, I just wanted to say, in this scene, Rosmerta, Fudge, and McGonagall go up to a room upstairs and just, like, chat about Sirius Black. But it's like, since when are Rosmerta, Fudge, and McGonagall such good friends?
Harry Potter has an extremely emotional reaction to learning this new information about Sirius having murdered his parents. And he immediately jumps to murder.
I find him, I'm going to kill him.
He's channeling himself from the 5th book, not movie. But
He really is.
So Harry is just staying up late doing some light reading of the Marauders map for no reason.
Yeah, it's a cool map.
This is right after the scene where he's, I'm going to kill him. What are you
I know
doing?
he's looking for him.
He is actually looking for Sirius. But
You're right.
It's just like, just reading my map late at night. He walks through the hallways with paintings that would be so annoying, being like, hey, put the light out, you're walking me up.
Yep.
Well, that's why students aren't supposed to be in the hallways at night.
Snape finds Harry wandering the corridors at night looking for Peter Pettigrew. Then Snape shows how self-denigrating he is by saying how extraordinary like your father you are. He too was exceedingly arrogant, strutting about the castle.
Yeah,
So,
maybe.
Snape is describing himself here. Which two characters are strutting about the castle right now for no reason? Harry Potter and Snape.
I mean, I think he's describing who Harry thinks is his father.
Exactly.
James.
Like, we know he hates James, and that Harry does believe that's his father. I also wanted to point out with that Harry's response, my dad didn't strut.
Counterpoint to that, Harry, Snape does have a very weird way of walking with his arms folded that one might describe as strutting.
So my next notes are about the Buckbeak beheading.
Hermione overhears Draco talking about Buckbeak and puts her wand to his throat. Hermione punches him and says that felt good, and now I'm going to say something that I have no evidence for, but perhaps she was imagining Ron when she punched him.
Is it? You got
it. Maybe.
'Cause that would feel good.
It is worth noting that Emma Watson had a crush on Tom Felton, so she probably didn't want to punch him, but would love to punch Ron.
You guys are making some really good points here.
Anyway, the kids go to visit Hagrid in his hut. Peter Pettigrew, the rat Scabbers, has been missing for a large part of the movie, and Ron was blaming Hermione for this, saying Crookshanks ate him. Hagrid pulls out the rat and says that he found him.
Hermione's like, I think that means you owe someone an apology. And Ron says, right, next time I see Crookshanks, I'll let him know. And she says, I meant me. Just say sorry, dude. You were wrong, and you've been chewing her out all year for this. Just say sorry.
It's true, for a whole year.
But my point was just that Hagrid is the one who had Peter Pettigrew. If they both were Death Eaters, perhaps he even knew that he was sheltering Pettigrew from Sirius.
He was sitting there plotting with Peter Pettigrew.
Yeah,
he's
of course.
Like, yes, our master's almost back.
Next year, when Barty Crouch shows up, we're gonna turn the cup into a portkey.
Perfect plan.
Pettigrew's like, isn't this plan a little bit convoluted?
No.
Dumbledore wants to see it when the hippogriff gets killed. Hagrid says in response to this, great man, Dumbledore. When Hermione offers to stay with him, doing the exact same thing that Hagrid just said makes Dumbledore a great man, Hagrid says, you do no such thing. Like I'd want you seeing something like that.
I mean, she is a child.
But it proves that there's some sort of kinship between Dumbledore and Hagrid. They are two people who like to see death.
Whatever Dumbledore says, Hagrid needs to compliment. He's a yes man, right? Like he's just trying to cozy up to Dumbledore. Dumbledore could say like, let's go like shove some toothpicks up our nose. And Hagrid would be like, good man. That's a good idea.
Now, Hagrid also says, if someone sees you outside the castle at this time of night, you'll be in trouble. Big trouble. Especially you, Harry. Why? First of all, it is not nighttime. It is broad daylight outside. The only consistent rule at Hogwarts seems to be you get in trouble when you go to see Hagrid.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Is it because everyone knows how evil he is?
He's a bad guy.
We could assume that there is a specific time of night when students are not allowed to be on the grounds, and that's the time it was, even though it wasn't dark yet.
Either way, how could they have not seen that this executioner executes a pumpkin and not a hippogriff? They're right there. Like, they are just like a few feet away from it. There's no way they could have missed that.
Hermione shouldn't be seeing something like that, so they just didn't look very close.
Well, but then Hermione does hug Ron, and Harry, feeling very left out, tries to get in on the action. He's like, hey, give me some of that.
I don't know, and I don't necessarily have solid proof, but this could have been the year when Ron put the Imperius Curse on Hermione, because Ron, who perhaps feels slightly guilty about it, does keep commenting throughout the year in several scenes how out of character Hermione is acting. Could be because she's under the Imperius Curse, because this is also when she starts randomly hugging Ron and grabbing his hand and stuff like that. So, I don't know.
And saying, would you like to get closer?
Yeah, right.
And of course, the obvious counter argument to this is, but Ron is 13 years old. Does he know the Imperius Curse? To that, I say, the creator of the Marauders map is his rat. The Wormtail, the guy who could do crazy magic when he was young, is the rat of Ron. He could have schooled him on how to do the Imperius Curse.
I know, and if you had any evidence that he was schooling Ron on this stuff, then that would be
so great.
Well, yeah, I mean... Yeah, that'd be nice. We'll get to it in the fourth movie, but Mad-Eye Moody does heavily imply that Ron has some connection to the Imperius Curse, and we'll get to that in the next one.
Yeah.
This rat, Scabbers, has been in his family for 12 years, so his family has been harboring an unknown criminal for 12 years. I think we're in agreement that Ron's a pretty bad guy. Who would you guys say is the worst Weasley besides Ron?
Percy?
Yeah. Percy is the guy who owned Scabbers before Ron.
Yeah,
you're right.
Is that any coincidence?
Yeah, and as far as I know, it was just like straight from Percy to Ron, because in the game, you go to school with Bill and Charlie and the twins, and none of them had Scabbers. It was just Percy.
Well, Percy just didn't want it anymore. He's like, here, take my rat.
He's a little evil and weird, and he keeps whispering to me at night about the Imperius Curse and all these other terrible things. Why don't you take it, Ron?
I guess.
After this, they go and tangle with the Whomping Willow.
So Ron gets pulled into the secret passageway under the Whomping Willow.
And Hermione is just insanely powerful and strong. I don't even know what she's doing here.
Well, first she gets grabbed by the Whomping Willow, so she's being swung around.
She's fighting the Whomping Willow all alone. And then as she fights off the Whomping Willow,
she grabs Harry by the shirt and picks him up.
With one hand, she lifts Harry into the air and then slam dunks him perfectly into the hole.
And then she flies into the hole.
Then
We don't know
throws
how
herself
that
on top of him.
Yeah.
She bested that tree.
I don't think she bested. I think she was working with it. I think this was her little maneuver for getting into the hole the whole time.
Wow. Possible. I think it'd be easier to just tap it at that spot that makes it stop fighting you.
Well, okay, here's the thing. That spot does not exist in the movie universe. Lupin comes up to the tree and just casts Immobulus, and that's how he stops the tree from moving, which Hermione knows Immobulus. She uses it on the pixies in the second movie.
Yeah.
And then, once they're in the Shrieking Shack with a murderer, she gets in front of Harry and Ron and says, if you want to kill Harry, you'll have to kill us too.
But notice how she says us. She's purposefully offering up Ron as a sacrifice without his approval.
Sirius is very good at painting himself as an evil psycho.
For the remainder of the scene, Sirius Black and Lupin are speaking in a way as if they want to be intentionally misunderstood.
Seem like murderers.
Right? Like they could very easily start explaining things, and instead they say things like,
no, only one will die tonight. And it will be you. Are you going to kill me, Harry?
And some of the explanation for that is that Sirius is kind of crazy, right? But I don't know what Lupin is thinking.
Lupin should be the voice of reason here, right? Like, he bursts in, disarms Harry, and then is like, looking rather ragged, aren't we, Sirius?
Finally, the skin reflects the madness within.
You would know all about the madness within. Then they start giggling and hugging
each
like,
other.
yeah, I found him, it's him. Let's kill him.
This is like when we do reenactments of scenes for the podcast and just say things more evilly than they were actually said with, but they actually say them evilly in the movie. I know I criticize this movie a lot, but this is where the movie becomes just genius from this point on.
Hermione reveals that Lupin's a werewolf, and he advances menacingly on her, saying, well, Hermione, you really are the brightest witch of your age I've ever met.
Like the way he says it is so
like
not complimentary. Yeah,
right?
like he could have said it totally different.
And he would if Sirius didn't beg him, let me kill him, please let me kill him.
Yeah.
And then Lupin's just like, very well, kill him. But wait 1 minute, Harry has the right to know why.
We're killing.
Like, why are they trying to convince Harry that they're evil? They couldn't have done a better job.
It doesn't make sense unless they're talking about Harry. Harry doesn't care about Ron's rat.
No.
While Sirius Black is insanely raving to an invisible Peter Pettigrew to come out and play, Snape comes in and saves the day. He saves Harry from these two madmen.
Yeah, no, it's a very badass move from Snape where he comes in and just completely takes control of the situation.
Vengeance is sweet. How I hoped I would be the one to catch you. Before you get to the later movies, you think the vengeance is sweet part is because they were bullies to him. But no, the vengeance is because he killed Lily. he believes Sirius killed Lily Potter.
Right.
That's the vengeance.
True. Yeah.
That is the vengeance.
Harry very subtly manages to steal Hermione's wand out of her pocket and use it to Expelliarmus Snape into oblivion. He just hits a wall, gets knocked out, and does not get up for the remainder of this.
He's out.
And I gotta say, when Harry casts Expelliarmus, and maybe this is just good continuity, it does what it did in the second movie. But when the adults cast it, it just pops the wand out of their hand.
Yeah.
Which is what it's supposed to do.
He learned the Snape variation, which just obliterates your opponent.
Which then he used against Snape, just like Sectum Sempra.
Wow. After the Shrieking Shack, Lupin is just the most irresponsible person on Earth. he knows it's a full moon.
Yeah.
Like, he knows. And he's just like, well, I'm not going to take my potion. And Sirius is like, caressing his chest, being like, Remus, my old friend,
is wild
have
to
you
me.
taken your potion to
Yeah,
that?
but Sirius somehow thinks that he's going to fix the situation by being like, this heart is where you
the
lie,
man you
Remus.
truly are.
You know that's not how it works, Sirius. You took care of him for years.
Right.
It's a really good thing that Snape is such a badass and managed to regain consciousness, come out there and protect them all with no wand.
Second greatest shot in the entire movie is when Snape turns around, is like, and shields the kids from the wolf.
He's so cool.
It's my favorite Snape moment in the series, right? That he comes out to like tear these kids a new one for attacking him and letting a criminal get away. And then he sees there's a werewolf and immediately spins around and throws out his arms to cover all three of them. And it's just like, I will die before I let these children get hurt.
Oh, man.
This is like a repeat of the worst moment of his life, besides Lily dying, which is when Sirius Black tried to murder him by tricking him into coming to meet Lupin as he turned into a werewolf.
Yeah.
What a horrible night for poor Snape. So back in the hospital wing, Dumbledore just like totally rocks Ron's injured foot.
Yeah, Dumbledore does not care.
He comes in and decides to start torturing Ron.
He doesn't give a crap, dude.
Audibly crying. Like, it's not like he's hiding it.
He then tells these two children to break the anti-time law, which has consequences too ghastly to discuss.
It's insane that this artifact is so powerful, and it does have consequences too ghastly to mention. And they're like, yeah, a 13-year-old girl can handle that.
I mean, she is a pretty cool 13-year-old girl.
There's no reason he should make two 13-year-olds deal with all of these horrible things tonight.
He should just do it himself. He could just borrow the time turner. He'd be the most well-equipped person to do this.
Speaking of time turners, do you guys remember when Torvald and Brita bought Brita a time turner?
Dude, that was great. And then Torvald and Brita bought Torvald Mjolnir necklaces.
Yeah, it was amazing.
At the exact same time, we both bought these things for each other without telling each other as we bought them for ourselves.
Yeah, we're so cool. If only we had a time turner to take ourselves back to stop us from making those
and buy more.
Oh, whoa.
Well, speaking of, shouldn't Hermione have aged like 2 years this year?
Yes.
Like, that seems so unfair.
She might have. I mean, the actor is about 2 years younger than Rupert Grint and Daniel Radcliffe, and maybe she's not anymore.
Whoa. That's how that works.
Mm-hmm.
So they go to save Buckbeak, and both Hagrid and Dumbledore at this point are trying very hard, conspiring together and with future Hermione and Harry to...
Dumbledore's like, look at those mountains.
Yeah.
That's where all the plants are.
Yep.
Did you know there were plants on the mountain?
Dumbledore somehow always knew that this was going to happen, and he is distracting Minister Fudge.
I guess probably at the beginning of the day, he was like, that hippogriff might be useful to me someday. And I know Hermione has a time turner, so I can just make that happen.
There's a point where they're waiting for the Dementors to show up or something, and Harry is just describing how it'll be great, just me and Sirius, someplace where we can see the sky, and Hermione is just staring lovingly at Harry the whole time. Just like, wow.
She's like, he didn't say Sirius, he said Hermione.
I kind of took that as her being like, I don't know how he thinks that's going to happen. Like, even if we save Sirius, there's no way he'll just live a nice, happy life.
Dude, and hearing Hermione go, woo.
The only thing a werewolf will respond to is the mating call of a female werewolf, and yet they can't tell it apart from Hermione.
She did Snape's homework, right? Like,
no, she did do Snape's homework. That's how she knew it.
His homework was teaching you how to seduce a werewolf?
That was it.
Thanks, Snape.
Maybe it's just Lupin, though. We do know he likes younger women.
Oh, no.
No.
Uh-oh.
People are going to get really mad at us for bagging on
What?
Lupin
It's
so
true.
much.
He does like younger
No,
women.
he does.
Now we are to the best shot in the movie. It's when the werewolf is coming after them and Harry and Hermione just cradle each other and hug each other. It's like the cutest shot ever.
Dude, it's so good.
consistently in every single movie, and I have to assume that this is just the directors, they're just like, okay, let's get Hermione and Ron together in a shot. And they're like, get Ron out of there. Let's put Harry. Oh, that looks nice with Harry. Yeah, let's just do Harry.
I mean, I think that there is at least some proof to that, because I know that in the 7th movie, there's this super random scene while Ron is off where Hermione and Harry start dancing. The director specifically mentioned that he was like, yeah, this scene is just sort of like a what might have been, where they're like imagining if we could have been
together. Because it's what everyone wanted.
Right. And like that scene wasn't in the book. It was only there because the director was like, these two look great together.
Exactly. And they do. And that shot is great when they're just hugging as the werewolf is coming. And they're like, oh, at least if we die together.
Just like him and Tom.
Harry and Hermione come back to the hospital room, and then Dumbledore, as he's walking away, they're like, we did it. And then he says in his perfect, like, Peter Gamp.
Did what?
No, he just kind of croaks, did what? And then walks away.
Did what? Oh, he's like a frog.
Anyway, I like that reading of that line.
And then there's a scene where Harry goes to see Lupin, and Lupin is packing up because he has to leave. And that's why he feels no remorse about returning the Marauders map to Harry, because he's not a professor anymore. But in that scene, he indicates that perhaps Snape is the reason that he was fired, because someone let it slip that he's a werewolf.
Yeah, so he probably shouldn't have ever worked there in the first place.
Right, no, like you're supposed to feel really sympathetic for Lupin. It's like, Lupin, you put everyone in danger. You almost murdered 3 students and a teacher, right? Like, I'm sorry, that's not okay.
Snape did a very good thing when he let it slip.
Yeah, he should have let it slip a year ago.
Even if you're giving him like the most possible, like, well, he's a human too, and he shouldn't be held back by his, disability, and there should be, allowances made for him, sure. But he needs to take his potion, and he didn't. And he put people in danger because of it. So, yeah.
Right. Harry summarizes this movie very nicely when he says, none of it made any difference. Pettigrew escaped.
Yep.
Which, as we already talked about, like, this movie could be removed and it wouldn't make any difference.
There we go. Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, done.
I don't think we actually had a lot of evidence for any of our theories.
No. There really was not a lot of scenes, even with Hagrid. I think there was maybe a little bit of evidence for Snape, but there's been a little bit of evidence in every movie so far.
None of it good.
After that conversation, I'm actually feeling like I believe all of our theories a little less than I did before.
No.
Yeah.
We're digging our own graves.
Dumbledore being a dark wizard, though, or at least massively irresponsible, that one I can get behind.
Obviously, of course.
Even though, it might be maybe one of my less favorite Harry Potter movies, I think it's a fun movie still.
I love all the movies.
And the actors do absolutely amazing.
So
like
good.
You said, some of those scenes toward the end are just magical.
Frida, thank you so much for joining us. Tune in next time. We are at some point going to go over Harry Potter 4, The Goblet of Fire, which I think will be one of the most theory-rich movies in the entire Harry Potter cinematic universe. So make sure you catch it later.
And it's a great movie.
Can't wait.
In the meantime, if you enjoyed what you heard, make sure to follow us wherever you listen to podcasts. Also, we're active on Twitter at Popcorn Isn't Real, so give us a follow. We'll keep you updated when we release things. Also, you could talk to us. Let us know if you just hate our theories or if you love our theories. We'd love to have a chat.
Music for this episode was provided by Christine.
Remember, the popcorn isn't real.
Do 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 do.